Welcome to the Always for the New Age podcast, where we weave the threads of traditional living into the tapestry of modern day life. I'm your host, Hannah, and I'm a naturopath, herbalist, and passionate plant lover here to discuss topics such as daily ritual, intentional living, witchcraft, herbal astrology, plus sharing interviews with inspiring guests, and so much more. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a podcast review if you enjoy my content. I wish to honour and express my deepest gratitude to the traditional custodians of the unceded land on which I live and record, the Wanjerabara people. I want to acknowledge their elders, past, present and emerging, and their continued connection to the land, sea and community. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Always for the New Age podcast. My name is Hannah Forrest. I am your host and today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Meghan Rhodes. Meghan is a qualified clinical herbalist and the founder of the Rhodes, Roots and Remedies School of Herbal Medicine. So thank you so much for being here, Meghan, and I'm so excited to chat to you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you too.
It's so fun. I feel like I'm so glad that our paths connected kind of through the Botanical Anthology magazine that we've both written for.
Yeah.
And so now we get to have this wonderful discussion about all sorts of herby things. So I wanted to start off with, our listeners may not know who you are, and I want to give them a little bit of intro. So a little brief tidbit about, who you are, where you're from, and kind of what you do.
Sure. So as you said, I'm Meghan Rhodes, and I'm the founder and director of Rhodes, Roots and Remedies School of Herbal Medicine. It is a mouthful. It's a mouthful. And I am based in Yorkshire in the UK, although my accent is not from there. I'm originally from Florida, so even after 15 years, acclimatizing to a very different climate.
Yes, I would imagine.
Yes, which, it is what it is. It's all good. So yes, I qualified as a clinical herbalist quite a few years ago, which was sort of a quite an important point in my own health journey, because like many people who find out about herbalism, you grow up, you've got stuff going on with your body, you've got imbalances, and you reach a certain stage in your life where you go, I really need to sort this out. I'm a bit fed up with this. And I had always been exposed to natural things through my mum. We used to go to, we called it the health food store back in the day, with that very distinct smell, which I now love, and
yes,
now my house smells like that. Yeah. When people come into my house and they smell that smell and they're like, oh, how do you get your house to smell like that? I'm like, there's an apothecary in it.
Yeah.
But we grew up learning that natural stuff alongside a lot of the mainstream things. So when I needed to take my health into my own hands and sort things out, I went down the natural route. And I actually didn't even know the term herbalism or herbal medicine when I was first looking for it. It was just like natural stuff, no chemicals, root cause thing. And then I finally stumbled across these terms. And I was like, oh, yes, this is what I'm looking for. So I went on some workshops and that was it. I mean, I was working in corporate tech. I had been fed up with it for many years already. And I was just like, this is what I need to do. So I qualified as a clinical herbal medicine practitioner and, had a private practice and saw clients, but of course did workshops on the side as you do.
Mm-hmm.
And as I did more of the workshops, people coming to my workshops were going, can we have more? Can we do more of this? And I was like, I really want to do more of this. So that's how things evolved to being a herbal medicine school. So now I just teach our intensive herbalism course, which runs for 3 years. People can join for as many of those 3 years as they want. Usually there are some tears when, life circumstances happen. People can't always do all 3 years. And then they're like, I don't want to leave. But and we're like, well, come to the alumni parties. And they go, yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I do full time now. And I absolutely love it. And I am so honored and so humbled every time we have a new group of students or every time returning students come back and we start a new teaching cycle and we sit in the yurt together, which is we've got a yurt to teach out of. And you're just in the presence of amazing, like-minded people. You're sharing knowledge. Stuff is just coming through. You know, there are those moments when we just, as a group, we just transcend. You know, and it's amazing. And then you watch everybody's light bulbs go off at different point, and you go, yes, 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 yes. So that's who I am, and that's what I do.
That's amazing. I actually didn't realize that you taught in person. I thought it was online,
It's a
which I think is
blend.
amazing.
Yeah. So some of the sessions are online, and then we connect in person, because it's not super practical to do everything in person. But
Yes.
I think there's a lot to be gained, especially when you're learning such an ancient set of knowledge and skills, and it's a craft. I think there's a lot of value in being able to do things in person if you can. So I really
Yes.
like to do that, bring people together.
I think my background is sort of similar. Like I have a bachelor degree in health sciences, specializing in naturopathy, like naturopathic medicine. And there's a lot I have to say, which one day will be another podcast episode about the degree here in Australia and what that actually looks like, and how I really actually feel like it sets people up to fail at being really good herbalists. You can be a pretty good naturopath, especially if you're using lots of like isolated nutrients and synthetic things, and just, kind of having a green allopathic approach. But, you miss a lot of the hands-on, like apprenticeship style learning that I think is so crucial and so integral in forming a very solid foundation for a very expansive herbal practice. And so I love that you're offering that blend. And also, who doesn't want to sit in a yurt with other like-minded herby people?
Who doesn't
That
want
sounds
to
like
sit
a
in
dream.
a yurt? I know.
Sign me up.
We love being in that. Whoever's sat closest to the wood burner, they're on fire duty, so they've got to keep it going. And it's just like, you just get together in this day and age. Sometimes, depending on where you live, it can be really challenging to find physical, real life, like-minded people to get together with. And you start feeling like a bit of an alien, You start going, am I crazy for thinking this way? And then if you've got people you can actually gather with and remind yourself, actually, no, I'm not crazy. I'm the one who's not crazy. And link up. It's just, you can just relax,
a deep breath of relief.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just, I end up being that weird herbal chick at the family gathering or the party or whatever. And it's so refreshing to be around people who think the same way and similar ways. And obviously we'll have our own nuance and, there's so many different ways people practice, but just to be around plant people who love plants as much as you do and love keeping themselves and their communities and loved ones well with herbal medicine, I think it's such a beautiful thing, and it really makes magic. So your course sounds beautiful, and I do want to touch on that later as well. So thank you for sharing that about yourself so people could get to know you a little bit better. I wanted to talk about, so I had a look through your website, which I've seen Mason. I listened to your podcast with Mason from Herbal, and he talked about how beautiful your website is, because you have a background in tech and it is stunning. It is absolutely gorgeous. So definitely everyone go check that out. It is a work of art.
I do it on myself, so thank you. Yeah.
It's so much hard work goes into building a website. It is hours of just like tiny details. And we want to share our gifts with the world, and so we want it to be perfect, and so I recognize the effort that goes into that. And I saw you had the info about your guiding principles, which was really cool. And one of them, I loved all of them. I've got one written down here. So you talked a bit about creating legacy, and there's a lot of nods to ancestral wisdom and ancestral remembering when it comes to plant medicine. So I know that we're going to talk a little bit about bringing your intuitive knowing of herbalism, into a context where we're using senses, and also how we're weaving in intuition and plant medicine with the divine feminine, right, as healers and matriarchs, which I think is so great. Our audience and listeners are going to love that. But would you like to touch a little bit on this kind of ancestral legacy wisdom, you know, inherent knowing, that lineage that we have, all of us really, with indigenous plant medicine somewhere along our lines.
I mean, it's plant medicine is the original medicine. You know,
Mm.
any sort of modern allopathic thing is a reproduction or an isolation of something that's occurring in nature. So first of all, if that isn't proof that, like, you know, it's valid. Second of all, if it didn't work, we wouldn't be here. You know, humanity would not have survived. I tend to think that we are, out of all the creatures and beings on, you know, planet Earth, are we the most intelligent?
I agree with you there. I think that we have a lot to be thankful for and grateful for when it comes to the plants and their lessons.
Yeah. I think, you know, perhaps we I mean, I don't know, I've not had a conversation with a wolf directly or anything like that, but, you know, perhaps we think the most of ourselves, you know, and we do a lot, but, you know, if it weren't for plant medicine and its effectiveness, humanity would not exist, you know, because for the majority of human history, that's all there was plant medicine. And that lets us know our bodies, because we are nature. It's just like, oh, let's be, you know, we are nature. Let's not have a connection with it. You connect with nature, you connect with yourself. It's the same thing. So our bodies and the rest of nature, the plants, we've been communicating since the dawn of humanity. Yeah. So that's a really ancient conversation that we know how to have that dialogue. The conversation between our bodies and allopathic medicine, in terms of the grand scheme of, you know, time, is a blip. Yeah, even something that's got, you know, a couple of decades of field testing, that compared to millennia, it's not good enough. Doesn't cut it. It's that's too risky in my. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather go with the thing that has been going on forever. So our bodies know how to engage with the plants. The plants know how to communicate with us. We just need to listen. So when I'm teaching, we're talking about remembering, relearning, reclaiming, reawakening, resurfacing all of this in our bodies, because this stuff is baked into our biology. You know how when, you know, certain baby animals are born and they stand up right away, which, as we both know as mums, you know, of little ones, does not happen immediately for humans. They stand up right away and they just, you know, they know what to do. I mean, you know, when was the last time you saw a wild animal in nature going, oh, I'm not getting this breastfeeding thing, you know? Like,
Totally.
It just, lucky them. It just happens, you know? So there's that instinct because it's in the biology that's passed down. Otherwise, that species wouldn't survive. So that knowledge of which plants, how to work with them, what they mean for us, how to engage with them, that knowledge has been passed down in us, just like it's been passed down in animals. They go out to pasture, they know what to nibble on. We know that as well. The difference is that animals haven't had tons of marketing shoved in their faces and tons of, you know, pick your various historical era and what they were up to that wasn't, you know, nourishing and supportive to humanity. That was focused on controlling and, you know, restricting and what have you. They haven't had that. So we've got to get back in touch with that knowledge that's in us, bring it to the surface, get back into the habit of listening to the rest of nature, listening to the plants, listening to our bodies and the messages they're surfacing, so we can connect the dots and bypass some, you know, I don't know, greenwash toothpaste or whatever saying, this is what you should really be putting in your mouth. And still it's full of all kinds of nonsense, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I am glad you kind of expanded on that a little bit, because that was my next question, is where do you think that disconnect happened? And I really do think sometimes that, like, as societies, we're our own worst enemies. We really, we in the name of progress, we really regress in so many ways, and we lose so much, you know, of that inner knowing, that inner authority, listening to our inner authority. And, you know, we're actually losing skills. We are losing skills.
Oh, yeah.
AI and all of that terrifies me because there are already kids who don't know how to sew. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to identify a vegetable. And that to me is truly scary.
I worked in the tech industry for a decade. Don't get me started on that. So yeah, we'll go down a rabbit hole. But yeah, I mean, we were, I don't remember what we were. Oh, we like to watch very few things we watch on television, but my husband and I like to watch one about people who we live in the middle of nowhere, but we like to watch this thing about people who are really in the middle of nowhere, you know, because we find, just talk about aspirational viewing, right? It's fascinating. And this woman was talking about, she doesn't like to cook. She doesn't cook. She just buys everything in packets and microwaves it, doesn't like to clean up. And I'm sat there like, this, and I said to my husband, this is not uncommon, you know?
Not at all.
But these basic skills, cooking, nourishing ourselves, and I would say another one of those fundamental basic skills, alongside knowing how to cook food and feed yourself, which sounds a bit simplistic, but it's also, you know, how to prepare food properly, how to combine food appropriately, what seasons, all this, which we just knew because we were growing it. And, you know, you ate what you grew and you preserved what you grew, or you starved, right? So it was a bit fundamental. Absolutely. You couldn't afford to lose those skills. Just a bit. I think knowledge of herbal medicine is just as fundamental, is just as important as knowing how to cook. Because if you can't feed yourself in that way, then there's a hole, and nature abhors a vacuum. And in the day and age we live in, there are many people with many of their own interests and a lot of money at stake who are very happy to jump right into that hole for you. And the more you listen to them, the less you can hear yourself. Plus, what part of what they're telling you is to, you know, make you not trust what your own voice is saying. Yeah, to question it.
Disempowerment, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, you know, don't use that because it might be, you know, dangerous, or, ooh, you know, and a lot of that mistrust. I mean, there are many times in history when that was done. A lot of that mistrust was sown during that whole era of the witch trials. You know,
I was just going to connect that. Absolutely. Yeah. It's surrounding women in particular. Definitely.
Yeah. So I love seeing my students tasting the herbs, experiencing the herbs, and I say, you know, well, what do you think that does?
Yeah.
You know, what are you feeling? Where is it going? And they get it without having to read something, because it's in you. Just the same thing as, you know, you've got a stomach ache. If you know how to listen, if you're used to listening to yourself, you can tell, I've got a stomach ache because I'm really stressed about that presentation tomorrow. Or I've got a stomach ache because I ate that thing that I know my body doesn't love to process, but it was there and it looked really good. And I was at a party and I had it, and then I had some more because it was really tasty. And, you know, now I'm paying the price, whatever it is. Yeah. But you got to be able to listen. You put the television on mute, the show is still running.
Yeah. I think I would love you to dive in with me a little bit about that connection with the feminine, actually, because, you know, I think herbal medicine, you know, herbal crafting, all of this is very much tied into women's history. And I think, you know, like the healers of, and it wasn't just women, it was men as well, shamans, you know, the healer of a village, of a community, you know, they're an integral part of those communities, and they kept people well, they held people in their toughest times. And, you know, there was also a lot of persecution as Christianity came into the picture, and, you know, all of that history. You know, I also love that you nod a bit to the Wheel of the Year on your website, which, you know, like that connection with nature's cycles and celebrating the Sabbaths, which we're very into here. We're into a bit of that. But, you know, all of that came together, and there was a lot of discrimination against women. And, you know, the fact that we were able to work with plants and had that connection with the earth, and were able to
heal our communities and like support people in their well-being. And that is too much power, I think, was the story there. And so to take that away was, you know, part of a strategy that unfortunately I feel has set us back so far. And this is something that is beautiful about this current day and age where herbalism is taking off, and people know what the name is now, and they know, you know, if I say I'm a herbalist, you'll get a few looks, but generally people are like, oh, I know what that is. That's really cool. That is such a refreshing change from even when I started over a decade ago now. And so like it's come so far in that time. But you know, what is this connect, like what experience do you have with the connection between the divine feminine, our history as women, and then the plants?
Do you know, I think it goes back to something you mentioned about, you know, is it too much power, right? I mean, we make people, you know? Like we make
literally
other people. Yeah. We bring them into the world. It freaking hurts, you know, and yet we survive, you know, and yet we stay, okay, you rest a little bit. And then you walk again, you know, like tell that to a man, like push something out here. As we say to my little one, push a whole human out your bitty bits. And then, you know, find another day when you can walk. And most guys would be like, ooh, you know.
My favorite, like, I know it's a bit like cliche, but I do love, you know, I get like a sense of somewhat a sense of satisfaction. And we do have male listeners, so to these guys, they'll totally understand. But the videos where they hook guys up to the electrodes and they like run them through what menstrual pain feels like.
Oh yeah.
And that always, like, I always kind of look at that and go, wow, right? Like we just so are told to just get on with it, but our bodies are remarkable, and what we take on a daily basis is really more than probably anyone should at this current time in history. And just it's quite intense and phenomenal, and like the power of women is astronomical. And so it is that power thing.
And I think what you just mentioned with the, you know, hooking the guys up to the electrodes with the period pains, like that almost paints a really clear picture of just how out of balance things have gotten over the course of history of this, you know, trying to take power away and infuse self-questioning and questioning of each other into, you know, as we're talking about particularly with women, because those intense period pains, and I know some of your listeners will be like, of course, yeah, I know this already, but not every woman knows this. And when I say this, they're like, what? Those intense period pains are not inherent in having a period. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That is giving you big, like we say on the course, if we don't listen to our body's whispers, we have to listen to our body's screams. Yeah. That's the body screaming, saying, I'm out of balance. Not there's something wrong with you, not there's something broken about you, not there's something that you have to fix, which is all this kind of, you know, fix it mentality rather than nourish and balance it and support it mentality. Those extreme pains are due to imbalance. Why is there imbalance? Many different factors that are lots of things being heavily marketed to everybody, you know, women and men, to everybody, that are not natural. You know, as Michael Pollan says, Michael Pollan's book In Defense of Food is one of my favorites. I love it. If you've not read it, go listen to it. To anybody who's listening, it's on the reading list for the course, the books I like list.
I love that.
And he talks about edible food-like substances. Okay, so edible food-like substances, the stuff that's going on people's bodies that is just pure chemicals, the stuff that's, you know, in the environment, whatever, and however far you want to take that, you know, anybody listening, however far you want to take that down, whatever rabbit hole you want to go, you know, I've probably been there, but all of that unnatural stuff is causing that imbalance, that unnatural stuff that's been pushed on people for decades, for generations, that's creating this imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we hadn't had to have this, not had to have, if that dynamic that happened over history of removing power, not just from women, but from the people in general, there was this
Totally.
movement of not having the knowledge of healing in the homes. No, this is the purview of these specific professionals who sit in their ivory tower or whatever with their white coats on or what have you, removing that the access to that knowledge from the people and making them question themselves, and then shoveling in place all of these edible food-like substances and the equivalents. And then we've got massive imbalance in the body. And then we've got period pains. And then we're hooking guys up to it saying, doesn't that hurt?
Yeah.
What caused that back in the day? And I'm not saying like it was men did it, but
No.
it
was the system that has been
yes.
built, and we are within the system now. And so many of us, this is why so many of us are trying to pull ourselves out of that system, right?
Yeah.
And kind of get out of the machine, so to speak.
Yeah.
And, I like to say, kind of what we were trained with was it's something like period pain is common, but it's not normal.
Normal. Yes,
so it's
exactly.
common, but it's not normal.
Yes.
And again, it's not to say that you're broken. It's just that we need to revisit what's going on in your body. And that comes back to that inner authority and how, again, the power is taken away from us. We're told that an external third party is the person who gets to dictate what is or is not wrong with us, or if there's anything, going on at all, which we know when it comes to especially things to do with periods and menstruation and the womb in general, tends to be here's the oral contraceptive pill, here's some Panadol, off you go, there's nothing wrong with you. We're not going to investigate, we're not going to run tests, you are making it up. Maybe it's psychosomatic. I'll give you a referral for a psychologist who's not very good and probably a man. And again, this is not hating on men at all. It's just that this is the reality that so many women face, and and people in general face, and it is a broken system. And so I like that you're talking to people. Obviously, you're talking to your students about reclaiming this knowledge and bringing it back into the home, which is so important. And it's helping communities to reclaim that power and that authority and taking responsibility for their health, because I think that is a big mental hurdle for so many people. The thought that they have to now take that responsibility, it also can feel quite heavy and confusing if you don't know where to start. So like having somebody like you who's able to walk people through it side by side and help them to relearn, which I feel like is a big part of my experience, having a very clinical evidence-based medicine approach to my education. I'm now having to even unlearn that and relearn traditional kind of folk approaches, which help me to help myself and my family so much better, and to work with the plants so much better. So thank you for the work that you're doing when it comes to that. And I wonder if you could share maybe like one or two really quick tips about how people could start to reconnect with that inner authority, that intuitive self. Like, how are they able to reconnect with their bodies in a way that, they can kind of understand?
Yeah. So there are two ways that I recommend. And, it doesn't have to be some big fancy meditation process or what have you. It all links back to turning the volume up on your body's messages so that it's eventually louder than all the other rubbish that's out there. So when you feel something in your body, whether it's, a headache or, just a kind of a niggle about something like, this makes me feel a bit uncomfortable, whatever it is, just get really physical with it. The sort of phrase of the moment with that is embodied, right? But get really physical with it. Where is it in your body? Physically, where is it? How is it, what is the sensation? How is it making you feel? Not just like, ow, that hurts, but, how is it making you feel? Because some people will get stomach pains and it makes them feel really down about themselves, Or some people get, I don't know, headaches and they feel really frustrated. So what are the emotions that are linking in to that? Because that will help you sort of get behind that as well. And then when you've got the kind of, placing it in your body, just pause and listen. It takes an instant to to make a decision about something. How much time have you got in your life? You can afford yourself one extra instant to just pause and listen to that. Yeah. Where is it? How is it feeling physically? How is it making you feel emotionally? Okay. And then honor that. If something, if you, like I said, if you're really excited about something, but then you've got a stomach ache and you go, oh, how do I feel about this? Actually, I kind of feel like this is a bit of a dodgy situation. Then don't go do it. Which is easier to say and get, I think, in your 30s than maybe your 20s. Because in your 20s, you're like, oh, yeah, but I'm sure I just,
Yeah.
But, listen to that and honor that, because the more you physically act on what you're feeling, what your body is telling you, the more your body is getting that feedback. Okay, she's listening. I can keep sending messages. And then you're just turning up the dial on that radio. It gets louder. The other way, particularly with the plants, when you're getting to know the plants, is drink the tea. Obviously, any plant you're getting to know, make sure you've properly identified it and it is ingestible and you have no contraindications, etc., these things. Yes.
Yes.
Don't just go grab something off a bush and shove it in your mouth, because
that's the personal responsibility piece, folks. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Do your homework first. But I like to make the tea of it and drink the tea of just that one. Don't mix it with other things. It's tempting, for a week. And it doesn't have to be 24/7 for a week, like 1 mug a day. Yeah. Drink it for a week and just jot down your thoughts and feelings on it. Don't look at any books yet, which is, this is coming from a recovering academic, okay, who is physically surrounded by books in her office right now. So yeah, I've been there. I've been there. Make the tea, drink it for a week. Write down, where do you feel like it's going in your body? What direction is it moving? What kind of pattern of movement does it have? What are the tastes, which is something we do a lot of when we meet the plants on my course. What, is it pungent? Is it aromatic? Does it taste, some people say, it tastes really medicinal. It tastes clean, even if you're not using official terminology.
My favorite is it tastes green.
It tastes green. Yes. Yes, which means that it's chock full of minerals. Yay, salty taste. But write down all those thoughts and feelings and observations, and things will shift in your body vis-a-vis that plant over the course of the week. So write down what's shifting. I'm peeing a lot. Oh my God, can I please stop peeing? Okay, so you've got a diuretic herb there. Anything else, write that down. Have a look at that by the end of the week, and then go check your favorite Materia Medica book, because you were right. And you'll remember all of those qualities of the plant, what it quote unquote does, how it interacts with the body, and way more nuance to it. You'll remember it because you felt it in your body. So in the future, when you're going, oh, what is peppermint again? The taste will come back on your tongue. And that will trigger all that other remembering in the body, rather than trying to sit and, I'm going to sit with my 15 reference books and I'm going to cross-reference and do a herbal monograph of all these things that are just repeating themselves.
Yeah. There's a couple really key things there, I think, that you just mentioned. One of them is it's not about being right. It is you have that inner knowing, but it's not about being right on paper. You don't need to be like, oh, cool, I ticked a box, I got the answer right.
Yeah.
It's actually about building that personal experience and having a personal experience with a plant and getting to know that plant intimately. And the other thing is pigeonholing herbs, which we're so good at. A herb, oh, it does this. Calendula, it's good for skin. And that's all it does. It's just, you put it on your skin, put it in a skin cream, great. But we forget that plants, just like humans, are multi-layered and complex. And, we do them a disservice and ourselves a disservice in our practice as well, by pigeonholing them based on something that they have written down in a textbook, rather than, the way that you're talking when it comes to the flavors and the experiences that you're having in your body with emotions. That just takes it to a different place. And so I did want to talk about that too, because you have am I correct in thinking it's a 7 flavor approach?
Yes.
To your medicine practice, which is great and very cool. And, I think that kind of that sensory aspect to herbalism is, really incredible, and offers a very deep herbal medicine practice that we learn better by doing and experiencing than we do by reading a book. And this is, again, I'm a big reader, and I'm a Capricorn. So if that means anything to you, I like to get things right, and I like to do my research, and I like to know all the things that I could possibly know. And sometimes that actually isn't the best way to get to know a plant and to have an effective herbal practice. And so, I would love to touch a bit on how you mentioned, maybe when you have a headache, you feel frustrated. And then you also talk about the flavor of a herb. If it tastes green, it's full of minerals. So how are you combining the experience of flavors and then also turning that into understanding how a plant might, what a plant has to offer us and how it might be helping us?
So each of the flavors has sort of a key profile of actions. If you're used to herbal medicine terminology, so actions is the stuff it does, which then links onto other vocab, which is more shorthand about what it does. But the impact and effect it's having on the body. So you can also link the tastes to, you can say, oh yeah, well, of course, this, the astringent taste, that means it's got lots of tannins in it or whatever. So you can link it back to constituents, which are those sort of, if you were to divvy up a herb into what chemical compounds are naturally occurring in it, that kind of thing.
Like curcumin with turmeric.
Yeah.
Easy one.
Yeah, and like whether it's got thujone in it or sesquiterpene lactones and all this stuff. And when I did my qualification, that was my least favorite bit. I was just like, my training was very unschooling style. It was quite challenging for me when I first started, because I was at the beginning of recovering academic journey, and I was like, just tell me what I need to write down in this. And she was like, there's nothing to write down. And I was like, and now I'm like, but we have no assignments.
Throw me one.
Just give me something so I can get it right. I'm a Leo.
Please.
Let me know. I want to get it right, and prove to you that I have gotten it right. Ta-da! And then you can tell me how great I am. Yeah. So so there is that terminology, but we don't work with that in the way that I teach, because it just feels a bit petri dish and white coat to me, which it's useful in certain contexts, but I don't think it's necessary when you want to be a really effective, confident herbalist for your family and friends. Yeah. So, bit of a diatribe, but the tastes, they do certain things. So we learn to decipher which tastes link into which sets of actions, so that when somebody has an infection, whether they've gotten a cut and it's infected, or they've got a cold or virus or whatever, we don't have to, especially with, so viruses in kids, infections in kids. Kids, they go to nursery, they go to school, they hang out with other kids. There's always that kid with the like perpetual green wad of snot coming out, and you're like, don't come near my kid. But it's fine because we've got all the herbs. They pick up everything. Okay. So it doesn't, in most instances, it doesn't really matter exactly which infection they've got, or even really if it's a bacteria or a virus, because unless you want antibiotics, then it matters. I don't want that stuff anywhere near my kids' gut microbiome, so we don't need it. So we need something that's antimicrobial, which is an umbrella term that covers antibacterial, antiviral, antimicrobial, antifungal, etc. What taste is antimicrobial? It's the pungent aromatic one. Those are the culinary tastes, yeah? So those are your rosemaries, your thymes, your sages, your gingers, your cloves, all of that. So somebody's got a cold, cool, pungent aromatic herbs. Whatever you've got in your cupboard or in your garden, you don't have to stress about having the right one or the perfect one. There, you can get into a bit more nuance to that. And once you've turned up the volume on your intuition, then you've got to clear, okay, I think actually they need peppermint this time instead of rosemary, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Very different herbs, but both antimicrobial. So you can just go, right, I need something pungent aromatic. It's much easier to access what is physically on your shelves and in your garden when you're thinking about tastes, and you can decipher what the tastes mean, because then it's just like cooking.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're making a stew and you haven't got one herb, but you're like, oh yeah, I can substitute this. It's the exact same thing. So, with that green taste, with that salty taste, that's full of minerals. So if you're feeling really depleted, if you're feeling exhausted, if you're feeling really drained, or even, after somebody's been poorly for a while and they, they're lacking those minerals, or somebody's really, things feel like they're not flowing in your body. So, you're not going to the loo as often as you'd like. You want to get things just a bit of a flush through. Yeah, just a bit of a, clean out the pipes a bit. Salty, because you're going to flush things through and you're going to remineralize. So then, when I have nettles, it tastes like green. Okay, yeah. And I need a bit of that green taste right now, nettles, rather than having to go flick through a book, and going, oh, which one? Because when you do that as well, when you're up in here in your mind, instead of in your mouth or your your heart or your gut, yeah, when you're up in your head, you can flick through a list of 20, 50 different herbs that are antimicrobial or what have you. And you sat there going, which one's the right one? Which one do I use? Or, this recipe from, internationally acclaimed herbalist who everybody loves. She's got this recipe and I don't have those herbs. Oh no, I've got to wait, to order them or whatever. Can I find the organic? Can I not? And all this stuff. Oh, I don't need 500 grams of it. All that nonsense you don't have to go through. Because antimicrobial, get a bit more nuance. Maybe, do I need it warming or cooling? Cool. What's in your cupboard? What's in your garden? Or even, you might not be able to get it organic, but if you're really in a pinch, what's at the grocery store that you could go grab?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when that's accessible, when it's practical, when it's tangible, you actually live it. So you don't get stuck in your head. You don't get stuck with your nose in your books. You actually get to do it. And then it works. I love, it's my main geek out moment of the year when my students kind of do their first, they've done something on their own to a family member who was maybe willing or not willing, but they were sick. Yeah. So they were compromised and they got the herbs, or whatever it was. Yeah. And then their child or their spouse goes, that worked. And then the student goes, I believed it was going to work, but that worked.
Yeah.
Oh,
so cool.
It works.
Cool moment.
I did it. Yeah. And you get this, it's amazing. Students who give blends to family members, who don't quote unquote believe in herbalism. Yeah. Which is it's not a belief system. It's biology. You don't believe in herbs, but you take a laxative herb. Guess what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how, anyway, they give something to a family member who's really got no context or connection with herbal medicine, and they turn around to them and they go, that worked. How did that work so well? Because your body didn't have to fight anything unnatural. Your body didn't have to, wasn't being told to do something that wasn't supportive for it. It was being given plants, which your body knows how to respond to, because plants are the same thing as real food, and plants are food, and that whole rabbit hole.
Yes.
And it's supporting the natural process that your body wants to do anyway to get better, to heal itself. I went to a workshop ages ago when I was first training, and the herbalist who was running the workshop said, what is it that is stopping or blocking or preventing your body from healing itself? And I went, ooh.
That's like the first naturopathic principle is, like basically, I think it's vis medicatrix naturae, the healing power of nature. And just, it speaks to our body's innate ability to heal itself. And really working with something like plants or food or both, because they kind of go hand in hand, and plants are food, the whole thing, as we just talked about. That actually just is like a helping hand for our bodies to come back into balance. And it's all connected for a reason. Like we're just animals. We are just animals. I say this to people all the time. We're just animals. Babies are animals. Like we are, not separated from nature. We are nature. And so by working with plants that are around us and that, maybe our ancestors worked with, we're able to tap into that innate connection we have. And this is why, like, with supplements, I always say to people, like, let's do a food-based supplement, because your body understands how to use that better. Like, if you take a synthetic B12, you're going to pee that right out. You'll
waste
pee
of
through
money.
yellow, and you think that it's expensive pee. And you think that it's doing something because you're like, I see it, I'm peeing it out. But actually, when you take a food-based organic B12, you don't have fluoro yellow pee, and there's a reason for that. So
and you should actually feel better. How many people pop what I call, the green pills? How many people pop the green pills for years and spend tons of money on it? Taking whatever iron or B12, whatever it is that they've sort of read a blog post or maybe been advised to, to take. They take it for years and they're still tired. It's not doing, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but like you said, if it's based on actual food in a supplement, or even better, eat the food. It's cheaper.
Yes.
And it fills you up. It does, multiple things at once. And then there's the wider context of lifestyle, because it doesn't matter how green pill you want to be about stuff. If you're still running yourself into the ground with a stressful job that you've been in for ages that actually you've always hated, and, or you're living in an environment that's, I don't know, full of mold, or, been in a relationship that's just actually really not, you've kind of realized for a while that, any of these things that are causing friction in your natural state, that's what you got to get at. You can't keep taking whatever supplement, even if it is food-based, if you're still plowing things into your body that are covered in glyphosate, for example.
Yeah, it's really important. And someone I used to follow, he had a phrase he used to say, which is you have to untox before you detox. And I've always loved that, because I'm not a big fan of the word detox, but like it's just nodding to the fact that, if you're going to keep putting things in your body, that are actually hindering you, causing anxiety or causing digestive upset, there's only so much we can do when that is still a part of your ritual, your routine, your life, your lived experience every day. But I love the approach of working with the flavors, because I think, again, it gives very comprehensive, very embodied, very broad, and also very detailed understanding of how plants work in our body and why they work in the ways that they do. Like one that everybody knows is bitter. I think pretty much everybody knows bitter. If you've ever had radicchio, which, you know, I actually won't say, I have something I say about radicchio about being basic. I'm going to say it anyway, like rich people salad, and like you don't eat it because you want to, you eat it because you have the money to eat it. And that's like, you know, that's basically radicchio, but it's so bitter. It's so bitter. And like those flavors though are so good for our body. And, you know, you put a bit of bitter flavor on your tongue and you instantly start salivating. Like if you touch a bit of gentian to your tongue, like you're going to start salivating, your stomach start to growl, you know, you're going to start to get hungry, and that's all of those beautiful gastric juices kind of pumping out and mixing with each other and getting ready for food and to break stuff down effectively. And
but here's the other thing with taste is like, especially with bitter as an example, if you've got bitter herbs in a capsule, which sometimes it's the only way you can get it, somebody can get it into themselves, you know, and then, you know, use that as a start. If you have it in a capsule, you don't taste it, you're going to take way more than you need. The bitter taste, or any taste, you get that strength of it, that degree of it. That's also part of the feedback to tell you, you only need a little bit of this. You only need a little bit of ginger. Yeah, because it's hot. You only need a little bit of clove, because if you have too much, your mouth will go completely numb and you'll be drooling. I did that back in the day. That was fun. You know, you only need a little bit of bitter, because if you've got loads of it, you're either going to make yourself really hungry, or you're going to have a massive bowel clear out, which may or may not be, you know, an experience you want. Or, you know, it's just going to, it's too much. Yeah. So you've got to taste it. You've got to just be real with it. This stuff is real.
Brave.
It's not meant to live
Drop
in
it on
pills.
your tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It has to be, you know, in the mouth, like apple cider vinegar in capsules. Like there's so many different ways. And really, when we're looking at that, yes, it makes it palatable, sort of. But I think there's other ways to make something like apple cider vinegar or bitters palatable personally. Like I have lots of different suggestions, and we can start anywhere from, like, you know, chew on some homegrown rocket leaves, and those things are, you know, they're pretty bitter. So if you're getting started with that flavor, like that's a really nice approachable way to start that. And, you know, and work your way up from there. So there's always ways that we can start to work with our palate and work with what we're used to kind of get on that journey of understanding the way that plants taste and how they work in our bodies in a way that, you know, feels good and doesn't feel too scary and off-putting. Because, you know, if you've ever just squirted a whole dropper of gentian tincture into your mouth, like it's pretty, like some people love it. I have friends who love it. I'm not that person.
But the people who love it, they really need a lot of it.
Need it. Yeah.
And the taste will change for them. That, you know, at some point they'll go, do you know, I don't really fancy this anymore. And people just think it's because they've got bored of something. But if you're listening, it's because your body said, actually, I'm good now.
And that's why we work with flower essences as well. Like how you know when you're ready to stop taking a flower essence is you're like, oh, I think I'm done with that. Or you forget to take it, or you just go, doesn't feel right for me today. So once you're more in tune with that, you know, response in your body, it's so relatively seamless to make that conclusion, like reach that point where you go, oh, I understand that I'm ready to move on from this. And what I love about this approach too is it's so translatable for children. It's such a nice way for kids to dip their toe into the herbal pool, if you will. So did you want to speak on that a little bit? Because you're also a mum yourself.
I am a mum. Oh, my little bean. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I often get asked, you know, like, how do you get kids to take herbs? And a lot of people, and I say, start them as early as possible to get them used to the taste. A lot of people think, oh, you've got to add a bunch of honey, or it's got to be in, you know, a glycerite or something like that. Only if you're weaning a kid off of, do you guys have Calpol in Australia?
No, but I'm a little bit familiar with what it is.
It's like paracetamol in a sicky, sweet, syrupy, and I think the bottle is pink. I just assume the stuff is pink or red. I don't know. We don't touch it. Only if you're weaning a child off that, yeah. But the more you can get them used to, and do it with food, yeah? The food herbs, your rosemary, your sage, your thyme. Give them, take them into the garden and have them play with chamomile. Have them smell it, have them see how happy the flower is, but how delicate the stem is. So we've got to be really careful as we're, pulling the flowers off. So we're really gentle with the plant. So all kinds of ways you can work it into them tasting it. They can have the teas, or, give them, depending on, the age, give them a bit of autonomy in it. Great to teach children autonomy within the context of parental boundaries so families actually function. Otherwise, you're just like
caveat.
Going crazy, right? But get, when because they want those responsibilities. Okay, would you like to help mommy cook right now? Which we call them herbidoos. Which herbidoos should we put in the soup? What do you think would taste nice? Or if not when they're poorly, because when kids are poorly, they're just they feel it. They've not got the mute button on. They're like
Yeah.
But if somebody else in the house is a bit poorly and you're giving them something, then talk to them about it. Oh, well, that how we put rosemary in, whatever, dinner we've had. We really like the taste of it. Doesn't that make your body feel nice and warm? When we have that thing for dinner with rosemary, and it's really nice and warm, isn't it? Well, Daddy's got a cold right now. He's feeling really cold. Can you see that? And, he's feeling really stuffed up. So he needs to breathe and warm up, doesn't he? So we'll give him some rosemary because it's really warm or warmy, proper translation. It's very warmy.
Yeah.
And have you noticed how rosemary, if you've got the plant, you can use Doctrine of Signatures. Can you see how it looks like a little brush, doesn't it? Oh, and Daddy's got lots of snotties in his nose right now, and he's got lots in his chest right now. I think he needs a nice warmy brush to warm all that up and brush that out, clean it out like a little toothbrush in there. What do you think? Yeah? And then you get some rosemary. But those kinds of conversations you can have when you've got that really practical, tangible, sort of body-based, sense-based relationship with the plant. Not when you've memorized it out of a reference book,
Yes. Yeah. My little guy he's like 16 months old, and he's been having herbal teas since he was really young because he actually got RSV, and we didn't know it was RSV at the time, but he was so ill. And, I was like, I need to do something. Like, I've got to do something more than what I'm already doing. So like we did some very weak fresh herbal teas in his water bottle and things like that. And now we get to walk around and we pick herbs together, and he's learning to sniff. So we go, okay, sniff, and he gets in there and he's sniffing the herbs and he's like, ooh. And then now I let him help me like pull them out of the jar. I have all these jars of herbs and sprinkle them in the dinner. And so he's helping with that, and that is something that he will never forget. And then once we start to have that dialogue like you're suggesting, I love the way that you've explained all of that, and on somebody else where they can kind of see a third party going through that experience and how you might help them and why do the plants do these things, and talk to them in a kid appropriate language about that's going to set them up with such a bone deep knowing of how to work with plants in just such a way that it sets them up for the rest of their lives. And that really kind of brings us all the way back around to reclaiming that power and being medicine keepers for our communities, and and also sharing that knowledge and having it kind of infuse into every single home. So that is back to being like that's what medicine is. That's what healing is for people.
And then then when there is a proper emergency, you know, when you've got a sort of Monty Python Black Knight situation, yes, give somebody the drugs, chuck them in the ambulance, sew that arm back on. Yeah, like, yes. But, you know, if more of us, if the norm became again that we are able to care for ourselves naturally for most, you know, for non-emergency things in our homes, then, you know, then the emergency services will be more available when we need them, you know.
And it's just about understanding understanding the role that all of these modalities plays, right? So right now we're in a bit of a pyramid situation. You've got, you know, modern medicine at the top, and then everything else is kind of down the bottom. And they are like, you know, where I would like to see us all kind of on a more even playing field where we understand just like the place that has in a home and in a community, and when to go for those. I got my finger in a blender making an infused oil last year, year before, and that was an emergency situation, and that required surgery, and that was important. And then also, you know, when my little boy was sick, or, you know, when I get sick, I'm not going to the doctor straight away unless it's something that seems really kind of out of my scope. Plants are what I turn to first, and I have my home apothecary, and that's something I talk to people a lot about, that home first aid, that herbal first aid kit, and like, you know, what we have available to us to make sure that we're stocked up so that we know that we have something to turn to, because there's nothing worse than getting sick and then going, oh, I don't have anything. I didn't prepare. I've got nothing. It's going to take 3 days to order something in. If I'm sick, I don't want to go to the shop. I shouldn't be around other people spreading my germs necessarily. So like, what do? I don't have the things, or I don't have the money for it. And that also is something I really love about being able to work with the plants in a way that is like the whole plant from our garden ideally, but, you know, something that you can source easily from the grocery store or from a friend or from foraging, you know, like ethically, you know, basically our neighborhood, you know, in something we know intimately, is that, you know, that makes it accessible. That makes herbalism and herbal medicine accessible for so many people. And sometimes even more accessible than, you know, being able to hop down to the doctor for some antibiotics or whatever. Like, that's really cool. That's really powerful and important.
I mean, I always say to my students, you don't need any specialist kit to make this stuff. You've probably got everything you need in your kitchen. Have you got some glass jugs, you know, heat-proof jugs? Great. Have you got some spoons? Great. Have you got a sieve or colander? Great. You might need to go buy some, you know, muslin. Yeah. You may want to have some stuff that's dedicated just for that, so that you're making a tincture, but it's also slightly infused with tomato sauce that you've been making or something like that. Might not be the taste you're going for at the moment. But like you said, I mean, herbal medicine, it's not just the original medicine, it's also the people's medicine. I'm looking out my window right now, and I've got a massive hawthorn hedgerow, and every time I look at it, all I can think is free heart drugs.
That's so amazing and beautiful.
Hawthorn
doesn't grow where I live. It's very sad.
We're surrounded by it. I love it. I love hawthorn.
So good.
And all the, you know, there's all the folklore behind it and all that stuff. But, you know, suddenly your landscape opens up. It's not just a sea of green or brown, depending on, you know, the time of year. You see what's in it. You're surrounded by friends because you've got a relationship with those different plants. You know who they are. You can walk out and say hi to them or not, you know, whatever vibe you want to have with it. And you understand what's around you. And even if you're not, you know, foraging ethically and what have you, even if you're, you know, growing it yourself or what have you, that feeling of not being alone, you know, in doing things naturally, because actually, even if you're the only one in the village, you're surrounded by all these plants, you know, and who, you know, you understand them, they understand you. You are part of those ecosystems. I mean, you are anyway, whether you realize it or not. But when you realize that you're surrounded by friends, it's a, you know, cozier place to be in than than just kind of
Totally.
the generic abyss. Yeah.
I love that. I would love you to tell us a little bit about your course, because if people want to learn more about these tastes and your systems, and kind of you speak really in a way that kind of in a similar way that I would teach. Like, I think it's really easy for people to connect with and understand, and it puts these topics on a level where it's also fun to learn
Yeah.
about, and you have like lots of ways that you talk that kind of stick in your head, which I enjoy. So if people wanted to study with you, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So we are in East Yorkshire in the UK. So sorry for all of your Australian listeners who are like,
They might travel.
you're very welcome to travel. I mean, I'm happy for anybody to come from anywhere. It's just how many flights you want to be on. Up to you. But our course runs through kind of end of March, early April, depending on the cohort, through to the beginning of December each year. So rather than doing a classic academic year, we do more of a nature year. And it runs for up to 3 years. And each year we just go deeper. So the first year, we lay the foundations. We spend spring and summer getting to build relationships with, getting to know our 12 herbs that we work with for the year. And then the second half of the year, we turn inwards and we focus on learning to understand and decipher the messages of the body. And there's a very healthy dose of, oh, see that little hanging thread in this veil of society that's hanging up? Let's just tug on that. And by the end of we start unraveling stuff. Yeah. By the end of the year, we've torn down, what's left of the veil. We've chucked it in the fire and we're like dancing on top of it and cackling with our herbal tea. It's the general vibe we're going for here.
We're all about that vibe.
Oh, yes. So we do that in year one, and we weave Western herbal medicine with Ayurvedic approaches. So we've got a lot of both of those qualities, energetics, the tastes, how we have 7 tastes because we're combining those. So it gives us a really nice paced, focused structure to work through without it being like, oh, you've got to, there are no assignments, there are no exams. Everything we do together. So there's 75 hours in each year. They're all live. They're all together. Obviously stuff gets recorded because, there's life. Yeah. I'm the only one with 100% attendance record. So we do everything together. Everything is completed together. So there's stuff to read, there's stuff to listen to together, and there's stuff to write down. All the things that we make together. If you want to go off and do more stuff on your own, fab. Some students are unleashed and the stuff they create is amazing. And then they come back in the autumn, and are like, look at all this stuff I made. Here, have extras. And some people are like, oh, I haven't really got into it that much. I didn't have time because I was, away with my kids and it was summer. Totally cool. You're still getting, the maximum out of it. So I should probably say when we meet. We meet in person in the spring for a full day. Then we've got 12 weeks of live Zooms twice a week for an hour. So everything is bite-sized because it is a lot that we're learning. Yeah. But everything is bite-sized. Everything's digestible. You're drinking the tea, so you're digesting it anyway. Then we meet again in person in the summer break, meet in autumn in person, 12 weeks again, meet again in person in winter. And then we have a closing ceremony in person. Because I think it's really important. It's a big thing that you'll have done. It's really important to acknowledge that and to celebrate that and reflect on that. And usually a cohort will go off for lunch afterwards, or somebody will bake a cake and bring it, to celebrate. So that's year one. Year two, we weave in the wheel of the year. So we use the wheel of the year as a bit of a structure rather than any kind of belief system, which is obviously cool if you're bringing that in. But it's just to give us focus on what are the shifting energetics, what are the shifting elements at this time of year, and how can we tune into that more. So aside from when somebody has a cold and it's now, what are we doing at each time of year to tune in, to become more cyclical, to become more in tune, more within that rhythm of the rest of nature. And then year 3 is the spiral of life. So we spend 4 weeks. Yes, 4 weeks on each of the 6 stages of life. So we go all the way through from popping in to checking out. And we look at the energetics of that time of life, common messages that come out. And we're still, picking at that veil. So what are the common, when we talk about elderhood, what are the assumptions about that? Are they valid? Is that what we want to manifest for ourselves, or do we want to create something different? What else is possible with this knowledge of herbs and being in tune with the seasons? So that's what we do across the 3 years. We have a lot of fun. We make genuine friendships within the cohorts and genuine connections across the cohorts, so people know that they're part of a real community of real people who they can actually call up and say, have you got some, instead of, oh, can I have a cup of sugar? It's like, have you got some extra chamomile? Or,
that's the dream.
Yeah. Or what does anybody think about this? And we work through stuff together. So it's all held. I hold each cohort as we go through, because when I'm holding it, then you can just relax and go on the journey. There's no right or wrong. There's nothing to prove. It's what you're picking up throughout it. Some people get to year 2 and they still haven't caught up on half of the Zooms they wanted to, watch. It's all cool, because everything comes through at the right moment for you. You'll have that moment when you go, actually, I really feel like watching that session I missed. Oh, something just happened in life with that. So that's what we do. Yeah. That's what we're up to. Probably slightly long-winded, but I tell a lot of stories.
No, it sounds beautiful.
Everything's very tangible, very practical. We have a lot of fun. We do a lot of cackling. There is the occasional soapbox moment, and it's such we learn from each other. So students come with different experiences, different training, and people chip in. I get to learn stuff too. It's great.
Yeah.
And so anybody who is either in the UK or who wants to do that travel schedule to the UK is very, very, very welcome to join us. Enrollment opens every spring for the next year, because people find us in their own time. So as this episode airs, we will still be enrolling for the cohorts who are beginning March, April 2025. There are a couple of places left. If anybody's like, oh, come join us. We have fun, is what I always say. And if you're, nowhere near, but you just want to kind of have a nosy about what do we get up to on the cohorts, other sort of, tips I have about learning herbal medicine, or if you are near, but you're like, I'm not quite sure, maybe this year's the year. The link will be in the show notes. Join our mailing list, which sounds like maybe a bit of an unsexy, join our mailing list.
I love a mailing list.
But yeah, join our mailing list, because then you'll hear about what are the dates, what are our cohorts doing, any kind of little aha moments. I share those on there, because I hope that it inspires other people and they go, oh, I hadn't thought about that way. Because that's what we do. We're learning the skills and knowledge of herbal medicine. But what we're really learning when we do that is how to tune into ourselves, how to understand our bodies, and what kind of life we want to create for ourselves, and what kind of world we want to create for ourselves and actually live in. Whether that's, changing the whole world, or just your world, your bubble, you make it, build that bubble of whatever you want to learn, whatever you want to live in, and let all the other rubbish just bounce off of it. Who needs it? It's boring.
I love that. And totally agree. And if people wanted to connect with you, even if they're not studying with you, what are ways they could connect with you? You're on Instagram, I believe.
I am on Instagram, yes. I'm not sort of constantly on it, because having come from a previous life in tech, I don't love I know too much about what's going on there, but I am on there because you have to be. So if you want to connect, you can pop me a DM there, and when I see it, happy to chat. Or the better way is to go through the contact on my website, because then I get it in email and I check that more frequently, and then I'm happy to email back. But yeah, if anybody's got any questions, I mean, the thing is, I'm not here to be like, come on my course, it's the best, everybody should come on it. I mean, I do love it and I'm proud of it, but it's your journey. Yeah. There are different tutors, there are different courses, there are different schools, and there's something out there that's the right match for everybody. So if you really, really want that classic academic structured thing, and I don't know, maybe you're in the UK and you've heard of me, but you're not sure which, somebody might give you that experience, pop me a message because I can tell you. Or if you're looking for a qualification, we don't offer qualifications. This is for people who want to live it for themselves and their families. But if you want a qualification, pop me a message. I mean, I'm qualified, so I've done it. Happy to chat about that. I just love helping people figure out what's going to be the most supportive, whatever it is for them to go on their journey. Because it's about you doing something that works for your way of learning and your life and what you want out of it. If it's a match, cool, come join us. If not, I'll, I know, various directions I can point people in.
That's very generous of you. And, I think your course sounds really beautiful. And I think all of our listeners are going to want to be there, even if they're not in the UK. So sorry to the Aussies. We actually have a lot of people internationally. But yeah, I think I always say not everyone's going to be, just like not everyone you meet on the street is a best friend. You're going to find the person, you need to find the person that is your person, because that's going to, shape the herbalist you become, the experience you have, the connection you have with plants, and just the journey you go on with that. So I definitely recommend everyone jump on and subscribe to your mailing list, because I love a good email into my inbox, especially when it's got cool herby stuff in it. But yeah, thank you so much for chatting with me, Megan, and it's been so great to get to know you. And I definitely hope that we connect again soon. And I know that all of our listeners are going to thoroughly enjoy this and get so much out of it. So yeah, thank you again, and good luck with the course. I'm excited to see all of your students go through and complete that with you.
Thank you. It's been a massive pleasure to chat with you. I would love to chat again, and to finally connect face to face digitally after we've been messaging. I mean, the funny thing is, which I think is a nice thing actually, when we're all together, we're so in the moment. People's phones are away. So it's from a marketing perspective, it's not great, because it's like, people want to see what people are doing. I'm like, sorry, we were all doing it. Our phones were away.
Yes.
Maybe we had a big student gathering, and I think before we started, my husband was like, oh, let's just take a picture of how it looks. And I'm like, cool, great. And actually my 4-year-old took some great pictures. And I was like, wow. But we didn't. I snapped one little video really quickly of everybody chatting when we first got there, because we were all having fun. We're too busy, which is so good,
guilty of
right?
that. Yeah, that's what you want when you're hanging out with your plant people. You just want to be in the moment. I'm so terrible at taking my phone out, so I resonate with that. I just am in it, and I'm connecting with people and enjoying myself, and so it sounds like a wonderful environment to be in.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely have to have you on again and chat a little bit deeper, maybe about the divine feminine. That would be really cool. It's definitely a topic we love. Yes. But yeah, enjoy your evening or your day, and we'll talk again soon.
Yes, speak soon.